involved.
Do whatever you need to, man.
So what was the original question?
So the original question, it kind of come from, like, you obviously know I'm a big football fan. The NFL draft coming up, and one of the things they always talk about is, like...
Are you trying to walk on?
Yeah, no, I'm really thinking I got potential. I got small hands, so it's limiting. No, but they always talk about, like Baker Mayfield got drafted last year, and they were like, oh, he was one of the most accurate. And Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson were criticized for not being accurate. And as someone who never was naturally good at throwing the ball accurately, I always wondered what limited people from throwing accurately. Mm-hmm. Is it a skill that can always be improved? And then I guess, like, lastly, it's kind of a three-headed one. What would be, like, the limiting factor? Like, if you have Drew Brees as the most accurate quarterback, and then, like, maybe a kid in high school who just happens to be more accurate than, like, all his friends, like, what separates those two?
Yeah, so there's like multiple prongs here, right? There's like multifactorial in the context of, like, just pure accuracy. So there's two parts to it, like the observation of what is accuracy. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, what is the potential of an individual, period, or rather question mark, to develop more accuracy. So say you get, like, an individual, I'm going to start with the second question first.
Sure.
Say you get, like, a baby. They're fairly inaccurate when they throw something, like a toddler or whatever it may be. You have a kid who starts to throw something, they have no idea where it's going to go because they don't just have control of their body, right?
Right.
So to extrapolate and to maybe fast forward a little bit, when you have a kid, they have this thing where they know, I mean, there's so many neurological mechanisms here, but when they bring this body part into this position, aka when you bring your hand back behind your body, your head, and then you go forward, you get a certain outcome. So I'm going super basic, like that basic idea. You obviously understand, but what I'm trying to say is that connection is being built from, like, day one. If it's not,
from, like, baby to toddler to kid to high school, that kind of thing.
If you're not developing it, you're gonna look like 50 Cent at that one baseball game. You just have no context for what throwing actually is from a nurture development perspective, right? You're not building that pattern. Nobody comes out of the womb throwing, but you can create these, it's called coupling, this coupled effect where if you bring your arm and your torso in this position, you get a certain output. And you recognize that even as a toddler, like, you can't talk, but you can still throw something.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's like the foundational, like, item there. So as you grow and develop, you start to go a little faster, or you throw a little further. Now, the concept of accuracy, where does that come in? Well, there's this thing called accuracy and speed trade-off. Now, if I ask you to hit the bullseye when you're playing darts, you might be able to after a couple reps, and you might not even be good at darts. So you're not really throwing that hard, and you're not really throwing with that many moving body parts, right? So the coupling is way different. Like, you're not moving your torso, you're not planting a leg, you're just, like, moving at your elbow and your wrist.
I was going to say, from what I've seen, it's pretty much like they almost try to isolate it, just
everything's
to
isolated.
Limit the number of variables.
So that limitation, that's referred to in the motor learning world as freezing, that degrees of freedom. If you get somebody that does all the movement and they run up to the line and playing darts and then just hack away, you think they're going to be fairly accurate?
No.
And they would look like a madman. Like, it would just be insanity. And, you know, you got to watch out for certain body parts if you're, like, around the area. So, accuracy versus speed trade-off. The thing that I want to highlight, I just said a lot of words, is when you want to have more accuracy, as you're learning, you need to freeze, quote-unquote, certain body parts in order to understand the accuracy that you're trying to gain.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're just saying, like, isolate variables, essentially.
Yeah, isolate variables, using your words, yeah. Because, like, if you're Steph Curry, you can do everything on the move. You don't even need to look at the net. You kind of get it. But
he's a freak.
But how did he get there? And then you can start to understand, like, there is this developmental process that you have when you're trying to understand what your body is doing in relation to the outcome, the performance outcome of getting that task done. Right? So
Okay.
so that's the foundation right there. Now
Yeah.
to answer your real question, say we're adults now, okay? Because we are, hopefully. When you're an adult, right? When you're an adult and you start to think like, okay, what is my limits? Like you're 16, 17, 18, and then 20, so on and so forth. What are my limits? You start to realize them a little bit sooner than later. And you start to understand, okay, there's this thing where you might not have the right body leverages, right? But when did that stop certain individuals? Whether or not it's Steph Curry, like he's not the physicality of an athlete, right? The thing that we think when you hear the word athlete, but he's getting the job done, right? Tom Brady, same idea. So you have all these different individuals that don't fit the bill. So what's happening? How does that work? It's something under the hood in the brain.
Right.
So that's where I'm going with it. You start to develop different neuronal connections. Neuronal because quite literally it's super easy. Like I'm going to use the easy analogy. Instead of saying the hip bone's connected to the knee bone, well, the muscle is connected via nerves. The nerves are connecting to the spinal nerves, and then those little nerves are going to be going all the way to the brain, so you have a better connection now.
So are you strengthening that connection, or?
So strengthening, I don't want to use the word strengthen, but rather you're reinforcing by, there's this thing, it's super cool. I was going to say, if you ever see a dead body, you get to cut into it, you get to see what the nerves look like. But
yeah, I'm around dead bodies often, so
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, you gotta fish around for them. So when you do that, you start to see that certain nerves are bigger than others. Like quite literally, the physical part of the nerves are bigger, which is weird.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never heard of that.
I mean, like, think about it. Like, do you think, grandma's going to have a great neuronal connection when throwing versus, Tom Brady, Steph Curry when shooting, these kind of things?
Well, I guess that makes sense, because when you think about it, like, when you look at Olympic powerlifters, like, even, like, on some level, they just have to have, like, larger muscles. And then if you're looking at, like, a high school kid, the first time he benches 95 pounds, and it's, like, all over the place. Not only is the coordination low, but the strength is low. So, like, the muscles reflected, it makes sense that on neural connections, there would be another, like, almost like physical imprint on the body.
And it's not exactly, it is that, but just to clarify, it's not just like the physicality is different.
Okay.
Because now you get to understand, like, this is not what I wanted to go with this, but when you understand the nerves have a non-linear impact on the skill set, you start to understand that, like, even if they're bigger or larger, it doesn't matter. That's not where I'm going, right? The physicality of it. I want to have you understand that by getting more reps in, you're going to have a better ability to connect neurons all over your body into your brain, not just for like a singular task. You think Steph Curry has issues playing anywhere? You think Tom Brady has issues playing in the hot, the cold, in Europe, in Africa, wherever? He can throw a ball wherever, it doesn't matter. Versus some individuals blame it on something. Like, all right, well, you just haven't played there. Like, you haven't made these connections. You have certain people that blame it on the environment. Well, it's like, well, you just haven't exposed yourself to it enough.
Sure.
So, going back to accuracy, because I could talk about this stuff forever. The accuracy of it, you have to go through different practice regimens. And I'm not just saying specifically, like, I have the key for this. But you're going to go through different parts of throwing movements in order to ascertain, did you get to the target?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, let's say you take, like myself, like I'm not very accurate. And you're like, all right, Kevin, like you're developing a little bit of accuracy if there's nobody in front of you and it's a wide open receiver and you're standing on your feet and it's like perfect temperature, cool. But like we're going to work on you like the receiver's going to move. Now we're going to get work on like you're moving and they're still. Now we're going to work on both you're moving and we're going to change like arm trajectories, all that kind of stuff. Is that what you're saying?
That's a great starting point.
Okay.
So there's this thing, if I can bring it back one step to that, before we start getting into methods. There's the individual. The individual is, we'll just call it a system, right? You're a being. You are who you are. But when you move through the world, you're experiencing the external reality, right? Like I'm driving right now, I see trees, I'm on a road, but I'm still sitting down. Like if you think about it, it's just like one of those jokes, like if you're flying in the air and you're pooping while in the air. Like it's really funny when you start thinking about that, you know? It's like you're sitting down in the air and pooping at 10,000 feet, right?
Yeah.
So in reality, your poop is traveling at 10,000 feet and all that speed as well.
True.
So anyway, but that's the reality of it. But you don't experience the 300 miles an hour or 10,000 feet because you're the pressure of the cabin and all these things. So let me bring it back, because the internal reality, aka like you and I, like you might be sitting down, you might have the phone to your head. I am on the other hand, I'm sitting down and I have a Bluetooth thing going on. So by understanding, you might even get a better representation because now you understand where I'm sitting right now, and you have a mental image of where I am. So that mental image can be created over and over, and it can be represented in the cortex of the brain, of the mind of the individual, so that they can begin to practice when they're not practicing. Is one idea.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
And they can begin to get reps in.
Yeah, it's like mental reps. Like I think that they did a study one time that showed, this isn't a direct correlation to what you're saying, but I heard a study one time that kids who played Madden more often were better at kick returns because basically they had like practiced it, and then they had like visualized how to set up blocks to like create running lanes and stuff. Where if you're just like, hey, it's my 5th time playing football, like cool, you're just not going to see the field very well if you're not getting any of the mental reps.
Because there's too many
when
things
you're
to
not
focus on. Too many things that are taking your attention. You don't know where to focus. So with that being said,
that makes perfect sense.
With the foundation now being upgraded, if there's an individual that is failing right now in terms of accuracy, right? Are you missing to the left? Are you missing to the right? Are you missing when they are running to a like their route? Are you missing that? Are you missing it when they're standing still? Are you missing it when you're standing still, or are you missing it when you're moving? There's so many variables, right? But when we bring it to fruition, there's this thing called I'm going to bring up 2 points now. It's called discovery learning. What is my body doing when I'm doing this activity? So just like I brought up all those variables of receiver moving, receiver standing still, you are moving, you're standing still, you're throwing off your front foot, back foot. There's so many variables that you can use. You just need to kind of explore all those variables.
Okay, no, that makes sense. You're like digging a deeper well just to understand.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like if something's wrong when like I'm running to my left and I'm throwing, but I'm good at everything else. Like if they're standing still, if I'm rolling to my right, all that kind of stuff. You have more information to pull from almost, where you can like hyper focus on just one degree. Where if I'm inaccurate all over the place, and you're like, hey, roll to your left, like it's not necessarily going to be that helpful. Because not only do I not have the basics, but I don't have any other information to like correct from.
So I always use car analogies, like because I always drive a lot. So if somebody's driving and they're trying to talk to somebody, whether it's in the car or on the phone like right now, they're gonna not do well sometimes because that person can't focus on the task at hand, which is driving. Because they you know what I'm saying? Because you're trying to juggle so many things. Like you can't walk and chew gum, or in this case, you can't move and throw a ball simultaneously. So you need to work on some other different variables. So now let's get into that last detail, that variable. What is that variable? That variable is called tau. I wrote a couple posts on that, and I don't expect you to read everything I have, but tau essentially talks about the closure of any gap. So let me clarify. When I say I'm starting at the 0 yard line on one end of a field, and I'm gonna be running towards the 5 yard line in order to throw a ball. Right? The play is I'm moving and then I throw the ball, right? I'm not passing the line of scrimmage, like all the rules, I get it. But I'm moving and then I have to throw. So I have to coordinate the 0 to 5 and then release the ball. And that could mean so many things. Is it gonna be a straight bullet pass? Is it a Hail Mary? Am I throwing across my body? Am I throwing, in so many different directions now?
Yep.
Now we can talk about, okay, now you're in shotgun, so all you gotta do is catch the ball, then throw it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not so much that you're not accurate, and could be. Let me go back to that real quick. So it's not you're not accurate, but you just might not have exposed yourself to enough variables to display the accuracy that you attained when you were just throwing standing still. This is like doing free throws with nobody around you. You're practicing for like an hour by yourself, and then you go to the actual, tournament or whatever, and you do awful because you can't handle the pressure.
Yeah, it makes sense, because when you think about it, like, if you were literally throwing a football with somebody random, but they're like when I say relatively athletic, I mean like they could play like social sports at a college.
Right, you're
like,
playing
they're probably pretty accurate at 10 yards throwing one to another, where all of a sudden you change all the variables. Yeah, now when the accuracy you find it's like a much smaller percentage of people. So it makes sense where I see if I'm picking it up right that way.
You are.
Hey, like those people where everyone's throwing 10 yards accurately, cool, now we've gotten to 30 yards and only half of you are accurate. Like the half that aren't accurate haven't been exposed to enough variables to know both like a spatial awareness point and like basically how to adjust all the mechanics in their own body to get that ball consistently from point A to point B.
That's great. Now, I do want to bring up another last point, because this is basically where it ends, at least with respect to the concept of what accuracy means. So let me ask, this might be more, obviously you have more insight on your own accuracy problems. Is it accuracy issues when are you missing the target by standing, like is the target standing still? Like you can't hit a cone, you can't hit a trash can kind of thing? Are you just misjudging something? Are you like missing it when they're striding? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would say that if I'm still in there I'm pretty consistent up to a certain depth. And then when they are moving and I'm relatively still, it probably drops another, 20%. And then if I'm moving and they're moving, like I might as well be trying to shoot a cannonball accurately.
Yeah. So exactly. So the thing that I would practice then, so you see where this kind of accuracy thing is like a little more defined now, with all the things that I just mentioned, right?
Right.
So with respect to accuracy, it's not just like, can you hit this target? Now the question is, can you hit this target while moving? Can you hit this target while backpedaling, shuffling, while avoiding a defender? Does those things make sense?
Yeah, so in your opinion, this will probably be my last question before I run out of time.
Sure.
In training, they always talk about like the law of specificity, but you can also like take it too far. Like you hear it in powerlifting programs where it's like, hey, like just because you're a powerlifter doesn't mean we're not going to do like prone trap raise to keep your shoulder feeling good. Like we're not just going to squat, bench, and deadlift. Would you say then, like, yeah, a quarterback's almost never going to be like sprinting backwards and throwing, but it's almost worth exposing someone to just as many movement patterns as possible? Yes. Or in your opinion, are those type of things not going to be helpful?
No, I think it's really helpful, and this is where I would defer to the sports specialist or the sports coach. I'm going to assume that certain individuals, whether they have QB coaches or different lessons within the context of being a QB, I'm going to assume that not you, but the general you, will have these lessons taught to you, and they're going to be in game-like scenarios. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like
I haven't been in the NFL. Yeah, I haven't been in the NFL, nor have I been exposed to a camp. So I don't know what they've been exposed to, but that is what I'm going to assume is part of that. Right? Now maybe we can start to say, okay, maybe it's not part of a certain camp of thought. So then we start including that within the actual like sports movement aspect in the gym. Like if we could do some running med ball drills to a target to catch it, and that's something that I would do 100%.
No, that makes perfect sense. That actually helps me kind of clear it up a little bit, because it's always an interesting conversation, because what you always hear constantly is just, hey, accuracy can't be improved. And it was weird to me seeing LeBron come into the league, who wasn't naturally a good three-point shooter, and then as he basically learned his own limitations in like the NBA Finals against the Spurs, he was like, all right, if I'm going to improve as a player, I got to improve as a three-pointer. And my brain was like, how come we think that a player can shoot a basketball better from a greater distance? Like he didn't have that skill in high school, but he developed in the pros at probably age, 26, 30, something like that.
Right.
Like, why don't we think a quarterback can all of a sudden go from like a mediocre default thrower to a good one, or even like subpar to decent? You know what I mean? That's why I kind of saw the gap between sports, and that's what kind of got my brain spinning about the question beyond just like NFL draft stuff.
Yeah, you gotta, one, you gotta surround yourself with better individuals to give you better answers, because you always get people that say you can't do better, but I'm like, yeah, I think you can. You know, with all the things that I just mentioned. And the second thing, if you want to look more up on this stuff, you'll just look up Nikolai Bernstein is like one idea. He has this concept called repetition without repetition, and that'll give you the basis for all these different things I just talked about.
That's pretty cool. That's definitely a good resource.
All right, man. Let me know if you got any other questions, but you know, keep on shooting me questions on Instagram if you got them.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the time.
All right, man. Have a good one. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Talk to you.